thought I would do something a little different with this blog post. You know, I actually type with 2 fingers. It's kind of embarrassing to admit that, but I'm a really slow typist. So I thought, you know what, why don't I just do a video blog or a vlog instead of typing this all out? Because this is something that actually just, you know, came back into my mind recently. So here I am. I'm just gonna make a video about it. And kind of the topic of this is a little bit of my own personal testimony, but I'm hoping to give some practical advice for anyone out there who might have had some similar issues. I haven't had a whole lot of health problems throughout my life. I've been very, very blessed in that way, but one that I have struggled with a little bit on and off has actually been a combination of hives and an ulcer, a stomach ulcer. It's kind of weird how these things got tied together, but I'll just back up a little bit and explain how this first started to affect my life. Over a decade ago, I think about a decade ago, it was 2008, I was you know, pretty newly married. I was working 3 jobs. I was finishing up my undergrad program. It was just a really, really stressful time in my life. I was trying to, you know, keep a business afloat. And then my wife also found out that she was pregnant. That was very exciting, but as you can imagine, it was also very stressful. So in the midst of all of this, I developed hives. I got hives that started all over my back. So my back was covered with hives all over the back of my arms, all down my arms, and it started to creep over to my chest, and it started to go up my neck and almost to my face. And finally, when it got to that point, I thought, okay, if I start to get hives on my face, I'm going to be embarrassed to even go in public. I need to do something about this. They weren't terribly itchy or anything, but my body was covered with these terrible, noticeable hives. So I really wasn't putting 2 and 2 together at the time, but it took me a little while to realize that, you know, hives just don't come out of nowhere. And at the same time, I was actually also having stomach pain every night, especially. I'd go to bed, wouldn't sleep well because I just had pain throughout the night. And I did a lot of research, and I found out that an ulcer, a stomach ulcer, that is typically caused by an overgrowth of H. pylori bacteria can also bring on the onset of hives. And you know, I researched this like crazy, and there was a doctor, actually, I think he's here from Wisconsin, who discovered this, you know, well over 2 decades ago. And it's been shown that the overgrowth of this certain type of bacteria, it's called H. pylori or Helicobacter pylori, can cause stomach ulcers or even intestinal ulcers, and then that can trigger hives. And you know, I guess this was one of the first indications that, wow, you know, there's so much interconnectivity in the body, you know, and that's why it's so important to treat people holistically. You know, holistic treatment is kind of a buzzword, but there really is a lot of truth to that, because there's so much interconnection between all of the different systems of our body. So anyway, I didn't want to just take antibiotics because I think that's the conventional treatment, because I knew that if I'm having bacteria issues, I want to make sure I keep as much of the good bacteria as possible. So I Googled, you know, what's a treatment, a natural treatment for the overgrowth of this H. pylori bacteria. And what came up was either eating a crazy amount of cabbage or juicing straight cabbage and drinking cabbage juice. So that's what I did for like a week straight. I'd come home from work and school, and I would just juice heads of cabbage, and it tastes just atrocious. It tastes terrible. I can't say anything good about it, but it worked. Within days, my stomach pain went away, and my hives totally went away. I was so thankful for that. I mean, I didn't have stomach pain at all, and drinking raw cabbage juice that I juiced myself fresh did the trick. It was incredible. And the one thing I didn't mention is that I do really believe that what caused the overgrowth of that bacteria was just the stress I let myself fall into. You know, number one, it was a very stressful time in my life, and I tend to be a little bit high-strung at times as it is. And it was just one of those moments where I felt like, you know, kind of the weight of the world was on my shoulders, and I really let that get to me. And when you're stressed, your immune system is suppressed. You know, that I think most people get that, but that was really lived out. It was very clear to me at that point in time. The stress weakened my immune system, which caused an overgrowth of H. pylori, which caused a stomach ulcer, which caused hives. It's crazy to see that now and reflect back on it, but that's really what was happening. And this came into my mind just recently because I have a daughter who is quite a bit like me in terms of her personality. She worries about things that she shouldn't worry about. She puts the weight of the world on her shoulders at times. She just recently, I think, has been starting to develop a stomach ulcer. So we've been really trying to be careful with what she's been eating. You know, she actually has been juicing cabbage. She hasn't had pain as of recently, but she did have a moment where she was starting to get hives developing on her, I think it was on her back. And we're able to kind of knock that out pretty quickly, thankfully, with these natural treatments that I stumbled upon 10 years ago. And I just, again, recently had, I guess, a reoccurrence of this myself, unfortunately. But just last week, we were traveling as a family, and it was, nothing overly stressful, but it was kind of stressful. My diet changed pretty dramatically. I went from eating keto to eating anything I wanted. So I was consuming lots of, white grains or refined grains and white sugar. And I think just a combination of the stress of traveling and being in a new environment and not being able to sleep in my new bed and eating total garbage caused that overgrowth again. And I actually got hives on my back last week. And I was like, oh, dang it. And sure enough, it coincided with stomach pain. I was having terrible stomach pain while on vacation for like 2 nights last week. Thankfully I was able to spend a little time on vacation at my mom's place, and she made lots of food with cabbage, just happened to be that way. And now I haven't had pain for several nights, and I've been trying to also just relax a little bit. So this is kind of a different blog post. It's a little bit my own personal testimony, but hopefully anyone out there who might be struggling with either hives or stomach ulcers can know that there is a natural remedy. You should really look up H. pylori and how that can impact your intestinal and your GI health. So yeah, that's all I got.